This is the Silver Star Nation Dallas Cowboys Draft Special.
The Cowboys finish off the 2020 draft class on day 3 with a cornerback, a center, defensive end, and a quarterback. We welcome in Babe Laufenberg and Mickey Spagnola. Let's start with their first pick in the 4th round, Reggie Robinson from Tulsa. Mickey, was it a surprise Dallas drafted another corner after selecting Diggs in the 2nd round?
Oh, I think it might have been for most folks, but if you think about it, their depth at the cornerback position beyond this coming season is very thin. They don't have a whole bunch of guys under contract. So I think what they did is they looked at their board and said, oh, this guy's still there. And I think this guy's got some flexibility. They like press man corners, and that's what this guy does. Now, again, he lasted to the 4th, so there's got to be some holes in his game. And look, I'm not an expert on Tulsa football, so I wouldn't have seen this guy play. But he was still there. They liked him. And there was talk after the draft about position flexibility. You know, if you think you got too many corners and you go, gosh, I need another guy in the box at safety, this guy fits the bill. He's 6'1", he's big, strong, and he's a special teams guy. Don't forget that, Dave.
Mickey, I don't think I've ever heard any team say, you know, we've got too many corners. So to me, in today's NFL, you cannot have too many corners. You're playing 3 of them probably 80% of the time, and you're playing a 4th, and guys get hurt. We know how that works. So I was fine with them taking a corner, even though they had Trayvon Diggs in the 2nd round. The second part of that is, hey, Reggie Robinson, we don't know if he may ultimately become a better player than Trayvon Diggs, who was taken ahead of him. And Wes, you referenced that 2005 draft. Well, they took Marcus Spears at number 20, 1st round pick. They took Jay Ratliff in the 7th round. Jay Ratliff became the better player than Marcus Spears. Jay Ratliff went to 4 Pro Bowls, also had an All-Pro selection. So you just never know. You throw some numbers at it, and you see who comes out on top.
Well, it turns out the Cowboys weren't done in the 4th round. They traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles to draft Tyler Biadasz, a center from Wisconsin. Biadasz won the Remington Award this year. It goes to the best center in college. Babe, is this the replacement for Travis Frederick?
They'd like it to be, but I don't know if you can ever take a guy in the 4th round and say, there's our starting fill in the blank. And that's where he is. He's going to be in the mix for sure. And I think the big thing is, Mickey, this was one guy that Mike McCarthy, as a head coach, said, this is a guy I want. He had his eye on him throughout the draft, before the draft, and then when he was available, they traded up to get him. So what's your thought on that, Mickey?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? When everybody was asking me about needs, I kept saying they need a center. And I would have been okay with a center in day 2. And then I said early in day 3 for sure. And he was still sitting there. 3 centers had already gone off the board. And they needed to address this situation, because think about it. All the guys they had on their roster last year that are still there this year, not one of them, and they're all candidates, not one of them started a game at center last year. Joe Looney was a backup. I know we saw Joe Looney the year before, and he did a nice job. But you're trying to replace a 5-time Pro Bowler. And again, if Joe Looney was all that when he was a free agent, he would have got some big deals. So the fact that they went after a center, I was asked, what's my favorite pick in day 3? It was Tyler Biadasz, because they needed a guy that actually played center last year in football. And again, these other guys that they were talking about, Connor McGovern, Connor Williams, you're talking about guys transitioning. And what happens if there's no offseason? Or what if there's a late start to training camp? It's going to be hard for 2 guys that didn't play guard over the last center over the last couple of years to say, okay, I'm going to put my hand on the ball and I'm going to replace Travis Frederick. I love this pick.
Well, it appears on paper the Cowboys got more great value with their 5th round pick. Defensive end Bradley Anae from Utah ran a slow 40 at the NFL Combine, but he was a unanimous All-American, Pac-12 Defensive Line Player of the Year. Mickey, your thoughts on Anae?
Yeah, I looked at his stats and I'm going, whoa, why is this guy in the 5th round? Then I saw, he ran a 4.9 something at the combine, and I'm sure that scared a lot of people away. Well, what I also found out is when he actually got to run at a pro day, and he went 4.79, and that's more like it. Will McClay did a conference call this week, and he was asked about a 9, and he said, I guarantee you, he plays faster than he ran his 40, and when you put on tape, it sure didn't look like he was slow, babe.
Yeah, that 4.93 really hurt him at the combine. You don't see a lot of great pass rushers running 4.9 and getting to the quarterback, and he had tremendous production. Obviously, Utah, 13 sacks last year, and I always say don't overlook production because there's a lot of yeah buts, yeah but this, yeah but that. He was a very good player on a very good defense. But now you go back, and I'll go back a few years, Wes, and you look, Jackson Jeffcoat, he was at Texas, had a tremendous career there. He also finished with 13 sacks his senior year, but did not get drafted and never really made it in the NFL. Played a couple of games with the Washington Redskins. Another one was Michael Sam, who had, I believe, 10 sacks in his last year at Missouri. Thought to be a great pass rusher there, but it really didn't. His game didn't translate to the NFL. And ultimately, he was a 7th-round draft pick by St. Louis, but he, too, never really made it.
Well, the Cowboys' final pick was used on a quarterback, Ben DiNucci from James Madison. So let's go to our former quarterback. Babe, what do you know about DiNucci?
Not a whole lot, but he was here in Frisco, right where, 4 or 5 minutes from where the Cowboys' practice facility is. So he played in the FCS championship game there. Actually came down to the final play of the game. They were going to tie up the score, or trying to tie it up with North Dakota State. He threw an interception on the last play, and that was that. But just a guy that Mike McCarthy apparently likes. When I watched him, not a whole lot of pop in the arm. He doesn't look like he's got that cannon, tremendous NFL arm, not a real physical guy, although he does play physical. A couple of times in that game against North Dakota State in that FCS championship game, he's trying to run over people. I don't recommend that in the NFL because you won't get back up. But again, 7th rounder, take a flyer. I'd always take a quarterback in the 7th round. But typically, those guys are the big, strong guys, maybe like a Steven Montez at Colorado, big arm, who never really got it done, accuracy, some issues. You go with that guy and you try to develop him. So a little surprising from the standpoint that, again, this isn't a guy with a shotgun arm. But Mike McCarthy likes him, so we'll find out. We'll go to camp and we'll see.
He started his college career at Pittsburgh, so Mike McCarthy knew a little bit about him, and ended up that McCarthy's brother coached him at James Madison. So they knew something about him. They knew a little bit more about him, too. He told the story about when he was here for that championship game. They were staying in Frisco, and he ran into Mike McCarthy on the elevator. And, he said, I don't know how long it took the elevator to go from the bottom floor up to where Mike was getting off. He goes, but I introduced myself and told him who I was, and he knew who I was. So, hey, think about it. Quite some time ago, 17 years ago, they gambled on a quarterback from a Division I AA school in Eastern Illinois, some guy named Tony Romo.
More than 55 million people tuned in to watch the draft at some point over the weekend. Most watched draft ever. Ratings were way up. Let's bring in Babe Loffenberg and Mickey Spagnola. We knew the ratings would be huge. Mickey, how would you grade the execution?
Oh, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it gave us a different look at the NFL. We saw families, not only the families of the players, but the families of the coaches, the front office guys. And I thought, isolation once again brought us closer together. I thought it was an A++ production.
I marveled, Mickey, at the technology involved and how they incorporated everybody from every walk of life, and they had no